Welcome back. This is our second video about project management. And today I'll be showing you what we call the 5 process groups. Think about this as the holy grail of project management is the foundation. So the first thing that you do in project management, theoretically speaking, when the project has been scrutinized for feasibility, we actually go into making it official. So before you make it official, you should have done a feasibility study, checked out the stats and made sure that this project will actually pay off and that you can indeed pull it off. Once all that is done, you move into initiating. And initiating is where a project charter is developed. What is a project charter? It's a document that authorizes the project and it gives the project manager authority to apply resources to the project. It puts the project on the map in the firm, and it gives the project manager a little bit of oomph to say, I'm the PM, I've been authorized to do this, project has been authorized to do this, so I'm good. Once you've initiated the project, you then move into planning. So you initiate it with a project charter. I'm going to show you what that is. You move into planning. You plan a number of things. You plan the scope. You plan the gamut of what needs to be done. What is in scope? What is out of scope? Have you ever been working on a task or project and someone wanted to add stuff to it that shouldn't be in there? You got to guard such things as a project manager. It happens all the time. We call that scope management. Then we manage the schedule, the timeline. Then we manage the cost. Quality, we define what quality looks like, and we ensure that we are managing to that quality standard or those quality expectations. Then we go into resource management. We ensure that we have the resources to complete the work, be they human, equipment, materials, supplies, facilities. Then we move into communicating as part of our discussion. We ensure that we are communicating the right stuff at the right time in the right way. Part of the dialogue is also risk management. Risk is all around us. Let's look at it. You're on the freeway, someone jumps in front of you, cuts you off recklessly. Well, that was a risk. How you choose to react could be risky. If you choose to pursue that individual, you're endangering yourself. It's an uncertain event that could lead to all sorts of crazy spirals. Now, bringing it back to project management, things like that happen on projects. You find yourself in a crazy spiral. Stuff that you never thought would happen on the project is happening. Project I worked on was a munitions cleanup. We thought we were good to go and we were able to deliver everything the customer wanted, but it started snowing. And this was up in Flagstaff, Arizona, where you wouldn't expect it to snow as crazily as it did this particular period, but it snowed 12 inches. That was a risk that we didn't see coming. The work was abandoned. We had to stop. No more munitions cleanup. Our government client was not very happy with us. We lost the gig. And risk needs to be managed. That's just one example. Then we talk about procurement, buying what you need for the project from an external source. And we also talk about stakeholder engagement. All of these things are part of project management. I call it project leadership because in order to make a dent on your project, you have to be an influencer. Talking about the TikTok, Instagram influencing, I'm talking about influencing in a corporate environment, influencing people who do not report to you. It is like leading without authority. And the honest truth about leadership on a project is you don't need authority, a whole lot of it, in order to lead, because people will follow you not because of your position or title. They'll follow you some way because of your position or title, but not all the way. In order to get people really following you because they want to, you have to go beyond the position. And that's what I've learned as a project manager. You got to go beyond the position. You got to lead from a place of understanding and empathy and trust. And you got to do what you said you would do. And people then begin to believe a little bit in you and they give you a little bit of change. I call it trust change. And as you proceed, You're going to gain some more trust change when you start delivering results. And then you're going to gain some more change when people see you truly care about them. And if you continue these activities, within the passage of time, people will begin to see you as a trusted leader, and they will follow. They'll follow not because of your position, but because they gave you the permission. So project management is a lot about leadership. With that said, you now understand the spectrum of project management: scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholder. Now you've got a firm idea about that. Let me show you what I called the 5 process groups of project management. They are namely initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. There are 5 groups of things that you need to do. Think about them as 5 big buckets of things that you need to do as a project manager. So let's jump in and I'll show you some finer detail about this on the screen here. So the very first process group is initiating, and I call this image the process group pentagon. Is something I made up because I wanted a shape that would remind me of all 5 process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. So let's talk about what we do in each of these. Number 1, initiating. You are developing a document that authorizes the project. It is signed off by the sponsor, and the sponsor, through their signature, have given you the authority to apply resources to the project. And they have also put the project on the map in the firm. When the charter is done, the next thing you can do is identify your stakeholders. And that means people who the project could affect or people who could affect the project. The next step, when you're done with initiating, and these could actually overlap, is planning. You plan scope and schedule and cost, quality, resources, communications, risks, procurement, and stakeholder. Planning could overlap with part of executing. Executing is carrying out the work. It's not enough to carry out the work. You have to monitor and control the work by checking the work, generating reports, and making sure that you're on the right path. And last but not least, you close out the project. You close out the project, or you close out a phase in the project. And what this means is you are proactively checking to make sure that your project is on track, to make sure that your project is on point. If your project is not on track, you, as a project manager, needs to bring the project back into alignment through a series of actions. And we'll talk about those actions later on. But I'll give you a quick preview. Part of those actions could be doing things differently, changing the plan, adding more resources, maybe even cutting up some of the scope if needed. These are just ideas of how a project manager and a team could react to a project going off the track. So here are the details. Please feel free to hit the pause button and take a look at the finer detail on the screen. First thing I mentioned is initiating. Part of initiating is defining the goals, defining the benefits. Project is authorized, project manager is authorized, and stakeholders are identified. The next step is planning. This is where you plan all of those variables that I told you: scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholder. Your plan doesn't need to be a complex one. It could just be, I've thought about this aspect, move on. This is what we're going to do with this aspect, move on. The next thing we have here is executing. Executing is all about carrying out the work, executing the plan, creating deliverables, auditing work processes, awarding vendor contracts, and communicating. carrying out the lessons learned, and rework as needed. The next thing is monitoring and controlling. You can see the detective there taking a look, making sure that things are going according to plan. And if not, we're involved in controlling changes, reviewing change requests, monitoring progress, generating reports, managing vendor contracts, checking deliverables, and customer acceptance. Final process group is closing. In the closing process group, this is where we are involved with the deliverable being transferred to the client. A final report may be created. We could examine drivers of success, carry out the lessons learned, archive the lessons learned, release resources, release the team, and things like that. And when we talk about releasing resources, that means human, equipment, materials, supplies, facilities, all manner of resources. So you release the team and materials, and then you follow closure protocol. And that's what it means when we say 5 process groups. Again, from initiating, you're going to get out a project charter, but this should be preceded by a business case. A business case is a document that makes a case for the project. It gives us a clear idea of why the project should be authorized. The output of planning is something we call a project management plan. When we execute, we expect to get deliverables, but leadership is at the heart of project management. It keeps systems and processes organized, but people need to be led. When we talk about project management, the leadership piece deals with people. The management piece deals with systems and processes and procedures. Monitoring and controlling, we're checking and acting as needed to get the project back on track. And closing, we're closing out each phase in the project and making sure that all documentation is properly archived. And that, my friends, is pretty much what these 5 process groups are in a nutshell. To expand on this a little bit further, I will introduce you to the concept of what we call in the world of PMI, Project Management Institute, knowledge areas. Here's the knowledge area concept. In addition to initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling and closing, we can slice and dice project management in a different way by areas of knowledge. First of all, there's integration, which brings everything together. So it comes first. As we look at all these other pieces of project management, you need to understand that without the integration, they are all just disjointed standalone pieces. To make it a cohesive management and a cohesive leadership, there needs to be some integration. Then we have scoping out the project, scheduling the project, costing the project, understanding quality and working towards it, understanding the resources needed, communicating, understanding procurements and stakeholder engagement. But at the heart of all of these is one thing, and it's risk. Because if things go wrong in all those areas, you are in trouble. And you need to identify risks and effectively manage risk. And that's why I have risk there as a bullseye. You want to make sure that you hit the risk concern squarely in the jaw. Now, when all this is understood, you know all these moving parts of the project, because trust me, these things move around. They don't stay fixed. When you understand this, there's another layer of leadership. I just call this leadership through and through. Here's why. As a project manager, you need to be a great steward of resources. That's leadership. You need to collaborate. That's leadership. You need to engage a stakeholder. That's leadership. You need to be aware of value. That's leadership. You need to see the big picture, be a systems thinker. That's leadership. You need to think about leadership itself, of course. Tailoring the project. It has insights and patience and knowledge, and that is leadership. quality, being aware of fitness for use, conformance to requirements, satisfying the customer, concept of Kaizen, which is continuous improvement. That is quality. Navigating uncertainty and complexity, being aware of risk, being resilient. I call it bounce back ability. And last but not least, being a change agent. All of these things, my friends, they work together to give your project a great outcome. And that is our second video. A lot of content. Probably may need to watch this again to get a good idea of project management, but I'll boil it down one more time. You got to initiate, plan, execute, monitor and control, and close the project. Then you need to understand integration management, scope management, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communications, risk procurement, and stakeholder, right? You got to wrap them all with a pretty bow and integrate them. And then you got to understand the different principles, project management. PMI have put 12 principles together. And in the next video, I'll be showing you the 12 principles of project management. I'll also be introducing you to the books where all this information is from. All right. If you've enjoyed this so far, don't forget to smash that like button, and I'll see you when I come back with the next video.